Welcome to Live DAF, your online DAF Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's DAF Hayomi Bava Metzia Pei Ches. We are holding on the bottom of Pei Zayin Amud Beis Amar Rabbi Yana. Here's a chiddush. Ein hatevel mischayv b'maser. So newly grown crop is not chayiv in the truma and maser obligations. And Rashi points out, even though it's been picked off the ground, been harvested and formed into a nice pile, right? Afilu mirchay b'kri b'sada, says Rashi, even though it's really pretty much looking like grain and fully harvested, until when? Ad sheyire pnei habayis. Here's a chiddush: you have to deliver it. You have to bring it into the bayis, into the home. And not only that, Rashi says pnei habayis, the front, the grand entranceway. You can't just slip it in through the roof, through some hatch. It has to be properly delivered to denote that it's ready for consumption. That gives it chashivas. That considers it fully finished and ready for consumption, ready product, ready to eat, and chayiv in truma and maser. How do we know this? Shnamar pasuk says, "Bi'artei kodesh min habayis." A fellow gets up and makes vidui, sort of confesses, "Look, I took care of all my obligations. I cleared out the kodesh, the truma and the maser, from my home. The maser sheni was already taken from my home. Apparently, it started in the home because the product was delivered to the home. Because only that triggers the truma and maser obligation." That's Rabbi Yana's chiddush. Rabbi Yehuda Amar, you don't need to go that far. You don't need home delivery. Afilu chatzer kevas, even if you deliver it to the courtyard near your home, that's also sufficient. So if you consider the finished product, this is by Maser Ani, the portion that's given to the poor people, that lead inside your sha'arecha, inside your gateways, which indicates to us that something which was brought inside the gateway, inside the yard, is already a candidate for truma and maser. So Rabbi Yana says bayis, Rabbi Yechanan chatzer, Rabbi Yechanan nami yaksiv min habayis. What does Rabbi Yechanan do with the first pasuk, which refers to the bayis? Amalach, he says, well, even a chatzer is enough, as long as it resembles a bayis. It's safe and secure, meant for residential use, like a bayis. Chatzer dumi the bayis, ma bayis amishtamber, just like a home is typically surrounded, safe, secure. Av chatzer mishtameres, likewise the chatzer that we're speaking has to conform to that criteria, has to be a protected chatzer, in which case it has that domesticated element to it, and something delivered into that area, into those confines, is considered. What does Rabbi Yana do with Rabbi Yechanan's pasuk b'sharecha? That's going to teach us the mode of delivering the item to the house. As we explained before, the ma'ayle derech shar must have been delivered through the gateway, through the door. That triggers the chiyuv. La'afuke derech gagois v'karfufos, the law, as opposed to product which was slipped in through the roof, through some sort of back storage door. That's not really considered delivered to the home. Deloy doesn't have the same chiyuv. Okay, now, knowing this, let's go back to our sugya. We started yesterday that, a fellow who's working, harvesting some crop for a farmer, he's allowed to snack off that food. Maser Rav Chanina Chuzo, he had a kasha from the brayso that we learned yesterday, which was based on a pasuk. Look, Mr. Farmer, you have to allow your worker to eat as he's working, kanafshacha, just like if you would, right? So kanafshacha is learned like it's referring to the owner, like your nefesh, like your desire. We compare the workers eating to your eating. Kanafshacha, kanafshacha poil. And the poil eats has the same status as if you would eat. With reference to what? Ma nafshacha oichelu potter. Just like if you, Mr. Owner, would sit down to have these, grapes, before it's been fully processed, before it was nigmar malachtoi. It's not itchayiv in truma and maser. That's the halacha. Av nafshe shel poel. Same with the worker. Although you would think, Rashi explains, you would think he's getting it as part of his, as part of his salary. It's like a perk of his employment. So it's like he purchased it. And when a person purchases produce, even if it's not yet fully processed, that act of purchasing elevates it. It gives it significance in the buyer's eyes, and it's regarded as though it's a fully finished product. So you would think a worker who's eating on the job it's like a purchase. No. Af nafshe shel poel oichel poter. Same thing with the worker. He can eat free of charge, no obligations, no truma and master. We don't deem it a purchase. But if theoretically somebody really did purchase, what does the pasuk sound like it's saying? He's not a purchase. He's not a buyer. He's not a customer. It's a built-in privilege to his work, right? But if one is really buying, chayiv, and he's chayiv and truma and maser, ma'ila besada, shall we not assume that we're speaking out in the field? Right? That's where the worker is. And theoretically, if one would purchase it at that juncture, he'd be chayiv and maser, because, as we said, although you would have to have gemar malacha, but mekach, purchasing, substitutes for that requirement. But one second. Gemar malacha is one requirement. Kontra Rabbi Yochanan has to be delivered into the home, into the chatzar. What happened to that? Oh, we're speaking about a fig tree whose trunk is situated in the garden out there, outside the house, outside the chatzar. But it's leaning into the chatzar or into the home. V'naifa, its branch, noita lechatzar, askinan, is leaning into the chatzar. Ulman damar labayis, nakontra Rabbi Yanai, who needs home delivery, it was leaning into the house, labayis. Oh, so there, if it would have been purchased at that point, right? You're standing in the chatzar, you're picking off a fig and you're buying it. Of course, it triggers chiyuv of truma and master, because as soon as you pick it off the tree, that's gemar malacha. It finishes its a finished product, and the fact is that you bought it and it's in the home. It's chayiv and master. Asks the Gemara, 1 second, hold it. So then, balavayis nami nechayiv. Forget about the worker. Forget about the buyer. The farmer himself, the owner. As soon as he picks the fig off the tree, Rashi says that's called gemar malacha. That's it. It's a finished product. They're not doing anything more with this fig. And it's inside the chatzar. So it's a simultaneous sort of trigger of Tumas and Masras. Oh, says the Gemara, no. If one is the owner, he's not chayiv. Only a purchaser is chayiv. You know why? Balabais ina b'tei nasi. The owner, he's focused on on the actual tree. He's busy harvesting his tree as a whole, and his tree is primarily where? Positioned out in the chatzar. Out in the gina, right outside this residential area. So until he fully picks it all, it's not called gemar malacha. Until he fully picks it and brings it into the home, he hasn't really finished the job. But a customer who's simply buying 1 or 2 figs off the branch, which is already in the chatzar, so he's focusing on the fruit. Right? He's focusing on a fruit. Okay, boom, here it is. Gemar malacha in the house is chayiv. So bottom line, if you have this fig tree situated primarily outside the boundaries of the home or the chatzar and leaning a bit inside, so a lekeach who's focused on this fruit which he's picking, as soon as he picks it, is chayiv. But the owner or the worker, for that matter, they're not really focusing on this or that fruit. They're trying to pick the whole tree, and the whole tree is sitting out there until it's fully picked, harvested, brought in. It's not considered a finishing of the process. Asks the Gemara, okay, so you mean to say that an owner is pater, a worker is pater, because it's not called, he's not considered a customer, but a customer would be chayiv. Is that true? That a customer who purchases in this fashion is chayiv? Vatanya, listen to this price. Why were the stores, the businesses of the Beis Hinoi town destroyed 3 years before the destruction of Yerushalayim? What happened to them? Why did they go bankrupt so quickly? They insisted on only following the Chumash. They disregarded the stringencies of the Chachamim. For instance, they would say, when you buy produce, you're pata from Maser. When you sell Aser to Aser, Pasuk says you should take off Maser v'chalta and eat it, alluding to an owner who's eating his product. As opposed to a fellow who sells it. It has to be something grown in your property. As opposed to one who buys produce. So when you're potter, when you're loikeach, only the actual farmer is chayiv, but not somebody purchases produce. It's only with the rabbanon that you're chayiv. So if in a Torah you're potter, why do we need that pasuk there that a worker is not a loikeach? He's potter. He's not a loikeach who's chayiv. In a Torah, loikeach is potter. Elam with the rabbanon, you're right. That whole halacha that we learned before was only with the rabbanon. Rabbanon who say that a lekeach is still chayiv. You should know a poil is not a lekeach is pot. Ukra, and although we based it on the pasuk and nafshecha, asmach the was just a sort of a hint to support this halacha. But really, in the deraisa, there's no difference because the lekeach is also pot. El kanafshecha l'mayasa. So why then does Torah mention the word kanafshecha? Look at this sanya for a totally new halacha. Kanafshecha. The worker, in terms of him snacking off the food, has the same status as you as the owner. In what regard? Ma nafshecha, just like yourself, right? Im chasamta. Let's say you willingly, withheld, you restricted yourself from snacking off your product. Potter, right? You're certainly potter. Nobody's going to obligate you to, right? You're not liable to anything. You didn't violate anything. It's your field, right? The same regarding your worker. You meant to allow him. But if you don't, and you muzzle him, so to speak, you're not chayiv malchus. In contrast to an animal, right? Like sachsam sher b'disha, you're not allowed to muzzle an animal as he's threshing. And if you do so, you get malchus. But when it comes to a person, a human worker, you don't have that halach. Masiv mar zutra. Let's go back to Rabbi Yanai, to Rabbi Yechanan, that only through home delivery is the grain or whatever going to be chayiv and maser. Ezu garner lamasris. We have a mishnah in Mesechas Masers. What's considered, a finished product when it comes to maser? Because shum b'dluim, you have these cucumbers or these pumpkins. Mishi paksu. Once she says like a little flower on top of this thing dries up and falls off, you have a finished product, and then it's chayiv and maser. V'amar b'asi. What does paksu mean? It means that the pikas, this flower, is shedding. My love, so we'll assume when this starts happening, even out in the field, it's chayiv and maser. You don't need home delivery to trigger chayiv of truma and maser. That's a kasha. Loi, says the Gemara, no, mishi paksu advice needs to take place in the home. If that's the case, mishi paksu. Why say as soon as it falls off? It should say it the other way, until it happens. Meaning, even though it was home delivered, until it's actually shedding this thing, it's not chayiv. Which would indicate that even though it's home delivered, which is a basic requirement, it's not enough until it gets to this more advanced stage. Why does the Mishnah say, well, once it happens, it should say until it happens? Says the Gemara, Tanachi Pak. So you know why? Because if the Mishnah would say it like that, Havamina would say, I would misunderstand. Ad the Gomer Lipikusai, until all the pumpkins have lost their flowers. Kamash, when the point is no, Mishi Paksu. Mishi Paksu means when it starts happening. Once it starts, that's enough for the whole bunch. Maser Maser Trubed Rav Nachman. Evakash. Garner Lamaser L'chayev Alav Misham Tevel. Misha to Gomer Melachta. What is considered the goyren? Right? When do we consider an apple, an orange, as fully harvested and fully, completed? Like goyren, like grain which is stored and considered chayiv and maser. At what point does that happen? When is the harvesting process completed, which triggers the chiyuv of maser? Once it's done, what's considered a finished product? The act of gathering this produce. Oh, out in the field. We're assuming achnasasa means to, collect it, to gather it, to harvest it. Even out in the field. Achnasasa means to deliver it, to bring it into the home. That's considered a finished product, ready for consumption in chayiv and masr. Here comes another pshat to answer this kasha. We made a big mistake. Here comes Rabbi Yanai. Rabbi Yanai, who says home delivery is a prerequisite, that only pertains to certain items which are not really stored up in the field. Bezesim, vanavim, olives, grapes. You don't, pile them up in the field. You bring it in. So that needs home delivery to be considered a finished product. When it comes to grains like wheat and barley, the Torah itself relates to it as geirin, which indicates that sitting in the granary as a nice pile, that's enough to be considered a fully harvested product in chayiv and masr. So bottom line, we have two approaches. Rabbi Yana and Rabbi Yechon say we need home delivery or chatzah delivery to consider the item fit for consumption and ready to eat and chayiv and masr. Otherwise it's just, farm material. But according to the second teretz in the Gemara, that only applies to things other than these grains. Let's go back to the sugya we've been learning for a couple of days. So a worker harvesting your wheat, there's a lot of snack off the food on the job. But the psukim only relate to a fellow who's actually harvesting off the ground. Okay, so that's what we find in the psukim. And also we find that an animal has similar rights, v'shor b'talush. V'shor is threshing, like sachsam shor b'disha. As he's threshing, you can't muzzle him. So we find that a person can snack while he's harvesting, while he's picking off the ground. An animal can snack while he's processing something which had already been picked. What about the other one? Let's cross it over. Adam b'tolish minola. What about a person dealing with picked items? Or a shor b'mechubar, which will come soon. So the answer is kal v'chayim mishar. We can learn the Adam from the shor with a kal v'chayim. Ma umar shor she'en eichel b'mechubar. If an animal doesn't seem to have any rights to this type of snacking while he's helping in the harvesting process, we don't find that. We only find b'disha while he's threshing. So even though he has that seeming disadvantage relative to a person, a human employee, nevertheless an animal has a right to eat betolish. Certainly a person who can eat while he's harvesting off the ground, certainly if something has already been picked. Well, says the Gemara, you can't compare a person to an animal. An animal is different because you're warned against muzzling him, you get malchus. If you do so, as opposed to a human employee, there's no lav, there's no malchus for muzzling him. I mean, you meant to let him do it, but if you muzzle him, there's no severe consequences like by an animal, so you can't compare the two. Well, says the Gemara, who says? 1 second. Perhaps if you muzzle a person, a human worker, you get malchus just like by an animal. How do we know? From mishar, umashar, because even an animal, there's no obligation to support, to constantly feed the animals in the street. There's no mitzvah to do that. Still, you're severely warned against muzzling him. Certainly a fellow Jew who you're obligated to support. The pasuk says, if to give him stuck, support him. It doesn't lend to reason that you Muslim, you get malchus. Well, says the Gemara, no. You can't suggest such a thing. Amakar, the pasuk says, you're meant to allow your worker to eat just like yourself. We compare the poil to yourself. Ma nafshe, just like you yourself. Im chasamte pater, if you chose to not eat, you're pater, right? There's no consequences on that. Poil im chasamte pater, same thing with the poil. So bottom line, a shor has an advantage. You get malchus if you're Muslim, which doesn't exist by a person. So how do you know to carry over from shor to adam? Back to the question, how do we know that a human employee can snack off items which had already been picked, which he's working with? Amakra, kama based palm. We find the word kama twice mentioned in this context. If it's not needed, the second kama is not needed to tell you that an employee can snack off harvested items. It's going to be applied to something which has already been picked, which you can chew on as well. Rabbi Amar, Adam b'talosh loitzarka. Don't bother looking for a source that an Adam can take from talosh. We have another pasuk. Ksiv ki saveh b'kem re'echa. The workers coming in to help out in the vineyard. Who says at what stage we're holding on? We're holding by. Shall we not say that perhaps we're speaking shesachar lekativ? This fellow was hired as a porter to transport some grapes which have already been picked. And what does the pasuk say? He can snack off them. There we go. So we have two possible sources to teach us this halacha that an adam can have from talosh as well. What about a shoyer b'mechuber manol? What about an animal who's helping you harvest off the ground? Now we'll flip everything around. We'll bring a kabachayim from a person. If by a human employee who doesn't necessarily have an outright right, absolute privilege to eat from talosh. So even though we've already proven it before, but Taisus says that you can actually stipulate as you're hiring him, don't eat from the talosh. So it's not an all-encompassing standard. Still, he has a right to eat from a chuber. An animal who we know can snack off picked stuff. Certainly can snack off things that he's harvesting. Well, you can't compare. Perhaps a human employee is different. You have to support a fellow Jew. As opposed to an animal where there is no such obligation. Well, who says? Perhaps you have to support animals. Since by a person, despite the fact there's no consequences for muzzling him, you have to support him on a regular basis. An animal, well, you get malchus for muzzling him. Certainly have to support him. That's what I would think. Support your brethren. Only a person, not an animal. So bottom line, we're back to the question. How do we know? How do we know that if the animal is helping you cut wheat off the ground, he can partake in that food? So in the Pesukim we have the word re'echa mentioned twice, which is an extra mentioning. It's not needed for a human employee to snack off the harvested material. Apply it to an animal who has that privilege as well. Rabbeinu says, look, don't bother. You're looking for a source that a person can take from talosh, that is shayar from mechuber. Guess what? I have one pasuk for everything. Famous pasuk. Don't muzzle the animal while he's threshing for you. Now, why single out an ox? It applies to every animal, as we know, right? Every animal is included in this Isra of muzzling. Make a comparison like Zera Shabbat. It says shur here, it says shur by working an animal on Shabbat, arresting an animal on Shabbat, and there it says it covers all animals. So we already know that chasima is applicable to all animals. So why does the pasuk mention a shur by chasima? The pasuk should simply say, don't thresh in a muzzled fashion. Skip the reference to the animal. Shur the kas rachman alamali. The answer is like this. In order to mention the animal in the same context as the person muzzling the animal. Look, you don't muzzle this muzzled animal, right? Don't lakushi chaysim, to connect the muzzler, the person, lanechsam, to the animal being muzzled, to connect in a way the human to the animal. V'nechsam l'chaysim, and in the reverse as well, to connect the muzzled animal to the muzzler. To compare the halacha, to carry over. The halacha is found in one, not by the other. To teach us both points. Just like a chaysim, a person, a muzzler. It's a reference to a person. In this case, we're referring to the human employee who's working. He has a right to eat from a chuber. Likewise, the animal is typically the muzzle being. He can eat from a chuber as well. Just like the animal can eat from talosh, b'dishay, right, the threshing. Likewise, a person who's working can eat from talosh. A person has a green light from talosh, and an animal has a green light by mechuber. Okay, we learned about the delivery to the bayis or to the chata, which is the final stage in the processing system, which triggers the chiv of maser. And we learned about an adam and a shur having the right to eat while they work, whether it's mechuber or talish. Aslacha Rabbi, to you, B'suras Toivos, all the best.